Good afternoon, Suidlanders. Welcome to Suidlanders Week in Review for the week ending Friday, the 15th of November, 2024. As is our habit, let's begin with the gold and silver prices. Both of them are down. Silver is hovering at just above $30 a troy ounce, and that may be explained by the largest short position, that is to say, bet against the price, against silver in all of history, which is usually a sign that somebody is endeavoring to manipulate the price, so that they're casting doubt on the silver price and what it should be. That leads other people to lose confidence, and the price in the markets drops. And then the first party, who was supposedly betting against silver, buys up a whole lot of it at a bargain basement price. That is certainly what the market is suggesting is the reason. Gold also down $2,567. Nevertheless, a very, very good rate compared to, say, this time last year. The next item is not date specific, as indeed most of our items for this week are not really date specific, because it has transpired over a few days. Yoav Gallant, the Israeli Minister of Defense, resigned. It turned out that the resignation was acrimonious. There was tension between him and the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. So a couple of days later, he issued a clarifying statement that has caught the attention of the world. He said, by way of explanation of his resignation, that one of the reasons why he resigned is that he wants the hostages held by Hamas to be returned, which opened the question, who doesn't want them returned? Is there somebody who has not been working for their return? Could they already have been returned if somebody was only more willing? Who might that person be? Who is this devil in Israeli society type of thing? The second thing that he mentioned that has raised a lot of eyebrows and garnered tremendous attention upon him and the resignation and the prosecution of the war was that he said, of the three reasons that he gave, reason number two was he wanted a full investigation into the invasion. Why? You're the Minister of Defense. You fight the battle. Why are you skeptical, suspicious? Why do you believe that there are unanswered questions about the invasion? Again, people all across social media are saying, were we right? And again, were we Suidlanders right because we made this observation from day one? When we thought that, as they say in Israel, the fish was stinking from the head. Something about the invasion didn't make sense. The 7 hour stand down, the fact that Israel has always claimed that they founded Hamas, that Hamas was a product of Israeli intelligence agencies, that it was erected as a counterweight to Fatah, that they had thoroughly infiltrated it, that Israeli spies were saturated Hamas. How is it that they didn't know that the invasion was coming? And then we got the leak out of Egypt that the Egyptian intelligence services had informed Israel before the 7th of October last year that there was an attack about to take place. What did they do? They sent their soldiers home. They stood down for 7 hours. There were all sorts of questions that weren't being answered, no matter how many times that they were asked. Is he hinting at that? Is Yoav Gallant perhaps saying, by the way, having been the Minister of Defense for the duration of this conflict, it has come to my attention that something is not right here, and I disapprove of it. Which leads us to our next story. The new Israeli Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, has implored the world at large, Israel, his fellows in the Israeli cabinet, the Knesset, that is to say the parliament, Benjamin Netanyahu, he has made a general appeal for Israel, that is to say the military, of which he is now the new Minister of Defense, should strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Apocalyptic, holocaustic, sheer insanity. It is being very, very heavily covered, and normal, sober-minded, sensible, sane people are putting very large question marks behind the Israel-Hamas / Israel-Hezbollah, Israel-Iran, Israel-Yemeni Houthis conflicts. People are beginning to look at them differently when the new Minister of Defense walks in the door and says, let's go for their nuclear facilities. Let's have nuclear meltdowns across Iran. That's the answer. Next, as per the very famous, highly regarded, renowned History Legends channel on YouTube, CNN is reporting that the Biden administration has formally given permission for U.S. military personnel to be on Ukrainian soil to service NATO military equipment. And as the man from History Legends said, of course, we all knew that they were already there, but this is an admission. Nobody can dispute it. Once again, Suidlanders has been proven right. We have been making this allegation for at least a year, if not longer. There is a large presence of NATO military personnel, American, Canadian, Western European, Central European military personnel who are not contractors, who are not mercenaries, who are representing their states on their state's dime, as Americans say. They are being paid as soldiers working for the Polish state, the Polish military, or Lithuanian, German, whoever the case may be. So that matter has been put to bed. NATO has been neck deep in this thing, probably all along. A curious series of events over the past week, since Donald Trump's great success, whether you support him or not, I'm very skeptical of him. Nevertheless, it was a great success, has been the Biden administration's repeated assurances of a peaceful transition of power to the Trump presidency. Kamala Harris made a point of mentioning it during her concession speech. Joe Biden made a point of mentioning it, and other administration officials have felt the need to repeat it. Which brings to mind the Shakespearean quotation, "Methinks the lady doth protest too much." Meaning that when somebody is innocent, they say, I am not guilty. But when somebody says, I am not guilty 25 times, then you should perhaps wonder if it isn't an act. And so it is that numerous commentators and observers are saying, is this a warning sign that the Biden administration has another trick up its sleeve to hamper or prevent Donald Trump assuming power on, I believe, the 20th of January at the swearing-in ceremony next year? Next, apparently there's been a sudden decline in the number of views or viewers of many of the traditional mainstream media outlets of the USA following Donald Trump's victory. And almost immediately, a whole bunch of hosts from CNN, MSNBC, and others have surprisingly been forewarned of imminent retrenchment. In simple English, what's happened is that during the elections, their viewerships tapered off dramatically. Naturally, they interrogated that. Why are we very suddenly losing many viewers? And why did that drop off sort of peak on the night of the elections and the following day? And they've discovered that people simply don't believe them anymore. Man, it's been a very dramatic, sudden, radical, you could say, event, although it has come slowly for many years. And their top stars are being told, you only get 300,000 viewers. Why do we pay you $20 million a year? Sort of thing. And of course, it has caused absolute horror among these top stars of mainstream media outlets in the USA. To give you some perspective, here are some current audience ratings in the USA in primetime news programs. So we right now are just going to look at primetime and news. CBS, which is a free-to-air station like SABC, ABC, NBC, and CBS are the traditional big free-to-air outlets of the USA. MSNBC and others come as part of a package, and you have it installed in your house, and they use the telephone lines to get that cable to your house, and that's known as cable news or cable network or cable television. So CBS, being free to air, gets 4.4 million viewers during its primetime evening news programs. Fox, which is cable, gets 2.27 million, MSNBC 1.83 million, and CNN just over 1 million. Joe Rogan, famous podcaster, has 14.5 million followers on Spotify alone, which is not to say that all 14.5 million people watch every one of his broadcasts from beginning to end. But they pay money to belong to Spotify. So it comes down to the same thing. The revenue is there. The justification is there. 14.5 million people willing to subscribe. On top of that, his podcasts go out on YouTube, etc., etc., etc. Tucker Carlson used to get an average of 3,391,000. 3,391,000 views before he was fired by Fox News. Now he gets something like, very conservatively, the numbers are not freely available, very, very conservatively, 10 million views for every monologue type video that he puts out on his Twitter feed. And he also has YouTube. And famously, he got over 150 million views for his Trump interview. He got many millions of views for his Vladimir Putin interview, and so on and so forth. Now, Newsweek reveals that precise figures are unavailable, but Tucker Carlson has also eclipsed Joe Rogan on Spotify. That was leaked to them. They saw the documents themselves. They don't want to say who showed them the documents. They don't want to give the precise number, but they state with authority that it is a matter of fact that he, Tucker Carlson, has even exceeded Joe Rogan's subscriptions on Spotify. The point, ladies and gentlemen of Suidlanders, to you as conservatives, is that there is a slender ray of hope for us. Our world is being destroyed before our very eyes, and there is little hope for our children to enjoy the conservative, prosperous Western lifestyle that we have known. Just like the very existence of Europe, we can kiss that goodbye. It ain't coming back. However, maybe, just maybe, there is some fight left in the West, and the sudden implosion of mainstream media and the strengthening of objective, truth-seeking journalism, even if it lasts a short while before artificial intelligence and an almost inevitable censorship law destroys it, and we have to find, like Russian Christians during the Soviet Union, other more creative ways to express ourselves and our conservative faith. Next, on Saturday, the 9th of November, President Vladimir Putin signed into law a defense pact with North Korea. That has been coming for some time. Both parties, well, particularly the Russians, have alluded to it. Third parties have spoken about it at some length. But it was formalized on Saturday the 9th, and it garnered a lot of attention. As you know, Russia has given North Korea Topol M intercontinental nuclear ballistic missiles with multiple re-entry independent warheads. We know that the North Koreans have been shipping artillery shells and light arms rounds to Russia for the effort in Ukraine. And just today and yesterday, we've received a succession of different reports about the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, watching demonstrations of drone tests, including impact tests and explosive tests and all sorts of performance tests, and making a speech urging the North Korean arms industry to ramp up production. Is he preparing for events in Korea, on the Korean Peninsula? Is he preparing for events in the South China Sea or Taiwan? Or are they just anxious to support Russia as part of this newly ratified defense pact? And last but not least, for this Friday, the 15th of November, in fact, I'm going to mention one other thing briefly. On Sunday, the 10th of November, we began to see a general flood of reports of severe deterioration of Ukraine's overall conditions on the front lines in the Russo-Ukraine war. Now it is no longer conservative, independent media saying one thing and the mainstream media saying another thing, certainly in the West, because in a recent short span of time, it has become undeniable that Ukrainian lines are collapsing everywhere, all along the front. What's more, in recent days, we have received numerous reports of Russia apparently preparing for a big push all along the front line. Enormous preparations. And it seems as if preliminary reports are suggesting that that big push along the entire length of the front lines in Ukraine began today. Time will tell. Let it suffice to say that Ukraine is on its last legs. There's very little fight left. And one way or the other, we're going to get big news in days to come of capitulation, of peace talks, of concession of territory. Who knows? And that's it, except for, as I said, one other brief mention. Today is Friday, the 15th of November, and it is going to see the last of the 4 supermoons for this year. Sadly, it doesn't look as if I'll be able to see it tonight because we have clouds over the farm here at the base of the Bamboesberge, just outside Hofmeyer in the Eastern Cape. I've seen the other 3, absolutely spectacular, lovely. Watch them from my voorstoep rise in the east while braaiing. This time I'm going to be disappointed, but I mention it because many profound people believe that there is some great significance in these particular celestial events, the 4 supermoons. A very, very rare phenomenon, much less to occur 4 times in 1 year of 2024. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you. Bye-bye.